think we're going to make a start. The clock at the back of the room is 5 minutes slow, which is a huge help. Let's kick off. Thank you all for coming. This is a panel on screenwriting and script writing. We're going to be talking all kinds of script writing. We have an amazing panel for you today. And in keeping with the film industry, it's made up of 5 blokes and 1 woman. We're all being paid twice as much as Sarah as well.
Let's not get carried away then.
Yes, you've been offered points on the net profits. But yeah, let me introduce. At the end there is none other than Sarah Pimbrough, New York Times bestselling and Sunday Times #1 internationally bestselling author and screenwriter. You've probably all seen Behind Her Eyes, which was absolutely amazing, and currently working on Insomnia for Netflix. Paramount, sorry. We're going to get a lot of that right. Next is Mark Morris. Mark, wow, I mean, we're going to be talking about, he's edited around 50 novels. He's done script work for audio dramas for like the likes of Doctor Who. He's also done the audio version of Blood on Satan's Floor, which I definitely want to talk about. Next to Mark is Gavin G. Smith. Gavin is the author and co-author of 14 books. Now, I think that Gavin he's had various things optioned, but you've also made your own movie. I want to talk about that and what you've learned from that. Next to him is Queeve McDonnell, who also writes as C.K. McDonnell. He's done the Dublin trilogy as Queeve. He also writes, he does the Stranger Times series as C.K. McDonnell, and written for TV and got lots to tell us. Also been a stand-up comedian as well. And next to me is Phillip Fracassi. Is that how I say?
Fracassi.
Fracassi, forgive me. Stoker-nominated author, and also has written movies and had all sorts of stuff option. I want to talk to you particularly about your Disney experience. I think we can share Disney sob stories because I've got some of those. My name is Mark Stay. I'm an author, screenwriter and podcaster. I'm co-presenter of a podcast called The Bestseller Experiment. I'm author of the Witches of Woodville series, and also wrote a couple of movies. One was called Robot Overlords, which premiered at the London Film Festival a few years ago, and a monster movie called Unwelcome, which Warner Brothers released, in air quotes, sort of threw it out into the street and let it survive on its own in March. So yeah, let's go from there. So
I thought you said you want to focus on the positive.
Yes, we are going to focus on
He's already taken a shot of water.
no, you're absolutely right. I said this in the email to them. I said we could sit here bemoaning screenwriting, because the thing is, if you worked in screenwriting, you listen to authors going, oh, my publisher, oh, this, all that, and you go, try screenwriting for a week, seriously. So yes, we are going to try and emphasize, we're going to try and inspire you to learn more about screenwriting. I'm sure lots of screenwriters in here, in the room as it is. So Sarah, let's start with you, because, you know, amazing novelist, and you're currently writing on Insomnia and all sorts of other things.
Filming. So I'm on a men's. I'm literally getting texts saying, can they change? We can't make this day. We can't make this day. Can you cut this scene? Yeah. I've reached the fuck it stage.
Do what you want.
You know, like you fought and argued over like one phrase for weeks, and then you're like, yeah, cut it. Okay. I've had my pay.
Sarah, while you're here, just give me your mobile phone. I'll handle all of that for you.
Yeah, I want to have a career at the next hour.
That's me.
So, was screenwriting always something you wanted to do, or was it something that came out of your books being optioned and it's something that you wanted to try?
I always wanted to do it, I think. Yeah, so long ago, I can't remember. And then I did a New Tricks in 2009, and then had loads of things optioned and done a lot of, as everyone on the panel knows, pilots that don't get made. So you get paid, but it doesn't happen. And then obviously on the back of Behind Her Eyes, I was at the read-through, and 2 of the women involved, Suzanne Mackey, who produces The Crown, and Jess Burdett, who's now with Netflix, but she was at Left Bank. And they were like, we need something else, let's come up with something else. So Left Bank paid for us to go to this really posh hotel in Oxford. We got smashed. And we started just talking about women's life experiences, and I had an outline for a book that wasn't quite working, and then went to bed quite drunk, and woke up the next morning with the sort of Insomnia outline. So it started as TV, and then I was like, I owe a book. Can I save time and write this as a book first? And then we'll have the whole story. So we kind of did it that way. So yeah, now we're 6 steps down. The past 6 weeks. I remember handing in episode 6 and being naive about this industry. I was like, I've done it! And I handed in episode 6. And my agent was like, yeah, Sarah, good luck with the next 2 months. And then there was been screaming matches and just the constant rewriting and changing, and then because everybody's got an opinion once you finish the script.
Everyone sticks to
everyone's got their own.
Having done the new tricks and written for TV for the first time, what were the big lessons that you learned from that you've taken forward?
Well, New Tricks was a lifetime ago to a certain extent, but I was so naive when I handed in the first draft of that episode. It was 80 pages long. And now, I mean, like the guy who runs Left Bank, who's making Insomniac, it's a guy called Andy Harries, and he's a TV legend really over here. And literally, it's got to be under 50 pages. Like under 50 pages. So, and then we did like a little read through in the team before. A couple of months ago, and he was like, "Sarah, this episode is short." And I was like, "Don't you fucking start with me?" This episode is like peak Harry's length. But I think it's just the collaborative nature of it, which I actually really love. Like I love being on the phone with my script editor, and I was in a car coming back from London after the read through when there was a train strike. So, and obviously I've been so injured over the past 2 years. It sounds pretentious, but I've got a driver because you need to get to places, and it wasn't always possible with the train. So the driver's driving me, and I'm on the phone, and we were talking about one phrase for like 45 minutes. Would Phoebe say this? Is it? I don't know. And I got off the phone, and he was like, "I cannot believe you guys were talking about that for 45 minutes. I said, "Oh yeah, come back next year. Someone on Twitter will say it was shit." Anyway. They didn't think that through. But I think, I love the interrogation that you don't do on a book,
right?
That you do with TV and film. You interrogate every scene. How is this working? How many things is it doing?
Can I ask the question everyone wants the answer to? What was the phrase?
I can't even fucking remember.
Follow-up question, was the Posh Hotel the one that used to be a prison?
No.
Oh, that's a good news.
Okay. I'm going to make him take me down for the next show.
Yeah, do it. It's good. Sorry.
So that's anyway, I'll stop waffling now.
Mark, now you've been working in audio drama, which I imagine is very collaborative too. How did you get into that? What's the process of that?
Well, the first thing I was asked to do was there's a company called Big Finish Productions, who got the rights to do Doctor Who audios. I think about 20 years ago now, 25 years ago, quite a long time ago. And I
45.
I was 45 back then. Yeah, I was a young man. And I'd written a few Doctor Who novels. I think I'd written 4 maybe. And I just got a call from them one day, and they said, "Would I be interested in writing an audio script, like a full cast audio drama?" And I said, "Yeah, definitely. That sounds great." But full disclosure, I've never written a script before in my life. And they said, "That's fine. We'll kind of ease you through the first one, and then once you kind of get the hang of it, it'll get easier." And so, that's kind of what happened. So I had a script editor there, and he kind of eased me through it. So there were certain scenes that I found really problematic to try and get across on audio.
Yeah.
I managed to bang out this script. It was only 25 minutes long, the first one I did, so it wasn't a 4-parter. After that, I did kind of full 4-parters, which were kind of 100 minutes, but this was only 25 minutes. And I look back on it now because I listened to it about a year ago. I thought, God, this is so clunky. And I remember I turned up for the recording the first day, and it's Howard Carter. It's about his Egyptology script, and the main character, apart from the Doctor and his companion, is Howard Carter. So I got there and said, "So, who have you got to play Howard Carter?" And they said, "Oh, we've got this guy called Benedict Cumberbatch." So I thought, shit.
Was he any good?
And he absolutely shone. He when he turned up on his motorbike in his motorbike leathers. And we sat and chatted about Howard Carter for about 10 or 15 minutes. He really interrogated me about Howard Carter, what kind of guy he was, what he talked like, what his background was, all this kind of thing. And then they started the recording, and I was sitting with Nick Briggs, who's one of the producers at Big Finish. Nick Briggs is the guy who does the voices of the Daleks and the Cybermen on Doctor Who on TV. And as soon as Benedict delivered his first line, we just looked at each other and went, "Wow, this guy's brilliant. This guy's really good." And he'd come in with a rucksack, and it had like we could see a corner of a little pink script sticking up out the top. And Nick said, "Shall we just have a quick look at what he's doing next?" So he pulled it out, and it was the first Sherlock script. So he hadn't been announced at that point, so he was just about to be announced as Sherlock. Because we looked at each other and we thought, he'd make a brilliant Doctor. He'd make a great Doctor. And then we pulled out the script and thought, yeah, there's no way he's going to be the Doctor and Sherlock. So,
Where is he now, eh?
Where is he now? Yeah. What happened to him?
Writing for audio drama, there is a real knack to it, isn't it? Because I think it was the actor Timothy West wrote a book about it called "The Gun in My Left Hand is Loaded," which is the kind of clunky line.
Funnily
that you
enough,
can.
Timothy West has been in one of my Doctor Who audios as well.
Fantastic.
So there you go.
And that was Mark's line.
Yeah.
Gavin, you've had stuff optioned, but you've also done that thing, which is what I recommend to everyone who wants to get into screenwriting, which is to make your own short film. You've got a film studio in one of these smartphones. You can do it on a laptop. If you can write a scene, just a conversation between two people that you can write on script and then film, and you'll make changes while you're filming, and you'll make changes while you're editing it. Say you write a movie 3 times on paper, in the shoot, and in the edit as well. You will learn so much from doing that. I say it's like if you want to be a chef, you learn how to make an omelette. That basically two-hander scene is your omelette. Thank you. And Gavin, you wrote, which is a really, really funny short film, which is available on YouTube. But tell us about the process of that.
There wasn't that much of a process to it. I've been knocking at the doors of script writing for a very long time. I failed scriptwriter before I was a mediocre novelist. Mediocre in sales. I'm an excellent novelist. But I was getting nowhere. I had at that point adapted Sir Arthur Conan Doyle novel for the screen, and that was doing the rounds, but I just wasn't getting anything made. And there is nothing, absolutely nothing more important than hearing your lines read out in anger. And particularly if you're a novelist and want to move on into script writing. So I wrote, it was one of these things, we've got absolutely no budget. I mean, we had 0 budget. We actually had a talented director, a talented DOP, but we had no money. And to the point where I was sort of swinging the boom in it. And it was almost a dialogue exercise, and it was just a 3-header conversation, 2 parents talking to their son about him being caught watching pornography at school, and just to hear how it sounded. And I think it was useful because if you can write comedy, you can do anything else, and it's a kind of, I don't know, it's a sort of wry humour, if you see what I mean, rather than belly laugh humour. Although there's one really good line in it, but I won't spoil it before you go and watch it.
What's it called?
It's called The Talk. If you do The Talk, Gavin G. Smith on YouTube, you'll find it. But the most important thing, because dialogue's got to do a number of things in a script, but you want it to sound naturalistic, so I had people talking over each other, because people talk over each other in real life, but that's very difficult to do well on film unless you've got, I mean, we had some good actors, but we were, actually one of them's now in Waterloo Road.
Brilliant.
Yeah, the young lad, he's now in Waterloo Road. You've got to give your actors time to sort of finish the lines and things like that, and that was sort of the main lesson I learned from it. And it was a bit of a confidence boost. I mean, it's really cheap. It looks really cheap, but I'm convinced that through that I could tell a story in the filmic medium. Bearing in mind it's sort of optioned, in inverted commas, feature scripts as well. It was the kind of thing that I needed to know. So wherever you are in your career, as Mark said, shoot something, see what it looks like. You will learn so much from that.
And do check out The Talk on YouTube, because it's inspiring, because you think, particularly if you're writing in genre, you think, oh, I'm going to need visual effects and makeup and all this other stuff, but you can make compelling drama with 2 or 3 people in a room, and one of these, and it really can work, and you learn so much from it. Queeve, you're writing adventures. You started writing in TV for children's, is that right? I mean, you're
I
a stand-up
start-
comedian, but
Basically, I was a stand-up comedian. I had sitcoms that were kind of getting optioned, and then one of them literally got sent to a children's TV company by mistake. And my agent rang me and said, "Do you want to work in kids' TV?" And I went, "Absolutely." And she's basically they put the meeting in anyway. And I ended up basically meeting these people, and they're great. They said basically they didn't want kids' TV writers; they wanted comedy writers. I ended up working with that company called Darryl McQueen. And the amazing thing about that is one of the hardest things you can do, like sort of almost like what you were saying, is the hardest thing to actually do as a screenwriter is actually professionally write, because it's so hard to get like TV and stuff. It's so hard to get into. It's so high pressure unless you're doing it yourself. The brilliant thing with kids TV, which I always say to people, is you can actually, if you get in there, you can write a script, you can get it edited, you can deal with all, you can actually go through the process. And I ended up doing, I probably did about 100 different things. We got the cartoon series and all that sort of stuff, which was just amazing practice at actually writing scripts. It was invaluable. And it's the place you can do it. And frankly, as well, let's be honest, it's kids' TV. If it's shit, no one's going to know. You're but, you know, and that's genuinely, so I ended up going in there. While at the same time, I had about, oh God, I think counted up and it was 10 sitcoms optioned at different points. I was describing something, because somebody asked me during the week about stuff being optioned. It's so hard to get something optioned and stuff. At one point, because I was sort of like, I don't want to use the word hot because you're looking at me. You know, just doesn't apply. He's like, nah, feral Santa Claus, not hot. Those two words don't fit together. But at one point, like, there were people getting quite excited about scripts and stuff. I was literally, after a meeting, I went out for a few drinks with a couple of people from a production company. We had a few more drinks. I ended up telling them stories about when I worked in a ferry when I was doing university. My first job at school, my first year of university, I worked on ferries. They optioned it. What I mean by they optioned it is I just told them funny stories while I was drunk. And my agent said they want to option the ferry thing. And I went, a couple of problems there. One, there is no fucking ferry thing. And second, I was sort of going, I'm not being funny. I got paid $5,000 for being pissed telling them stories. And my wife sort of goes, I've heard those stories 4 times. It feels like I should get half the money. I was there when you were workshopping them, frankly. But yeah, that's TV though. They don't know what they want. So when they see something they think is funny, they just grab it. So you end up in that kind of weird situation.
I want to talk in a minute about option stories and how they will work. But Phillip, you've been working in Hollywood. I mean, I want to talk about, now Phillip is Stoker-nominated author. You know, he's had award-winning stories, best horror of the year. So it's no surprise to me that your debut movie was Santa Paws 2: The Santa Pups.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that progression?
Well, it progressed the other way, but yeah. So I was always been a writer. But I used to write just like non-genre fiction and went nowhere with it. And so I started writing screenplays about 10 years ago, and I wrote a Lifetime movie called Girl Missing, and I actually wrote 7 scripts for Disney, but only got credited for 1 because Disney. And yeah, Santa Paws 2: The Santa Pups. Actually, so the way it worked for me with Disney was they would give me like a paragraph, and they would say make the movie out of that idea, and then I would write them the screenplay, and it had to be exactly 95 pages because that's exactly how long Disney scripts are, at least the ones I worked on, and yeah, so it was a very interesting experience, and but yeah, I wrote a bunch more for them, and actually when I turned that script in, I created a lot of the characters that are in the movie, which was kind of cool, and I also I wrote 3 songs for them as well, just because I was in the mood. And so I wrote 3 songs, and we actually went to his little studio with some friends, and we recorded the songs, and we had some musicians and some friends come in and sing them, and I sent the songs along with the script, and they used one of the songs in the movie, which is called Christmas Gold, which is sung by Diane Ladd, I think is her name, to her little girl, and I think they didn't want to pay me for the song, so they gave me the screenwriting credit instead. So I think it was the way they were doing it. So yes, and so I wrote a lot for them, and those are work for hires and stuff like that. The Lifetime movie was actually a horror movie, so it was more in line with my fiction writing, and that was a really interesting experience because I was on set for the duration of the filming in Minnesota, and I was rewriting every single day based on similar things, to what Sarah was saying, but like the actress was uncomfortable with the way the line was read, or or the location changed how you would write a scene, because, oh look, like the director would show up out of the location and be like, oh look, all these doors open, this is kind of cool, can we write that in, you know, to the scene? And I'm like, I guess, sure, you know. And so things like that. So a lot was happening on the day, in addition to, you know, all the prep. And so I think I ended up at the end of that particular movie, I think I ended up with like 28 drafts of that script, because I kept, you know, everyone was obviously, you know, changed and colored. So it's a lot of moving pieces, and you're kind of, you know, you're adapting to the situation, to the characters, to the setting, but yeah. So but the kids movies I did for a bit, and then decided to just focus on horror. And so after writing, you know, I don't know, 9-10 horror scripts and trying to sell them to everyone from CBS to Blumhouse and having no success, I said, and then I started writing horror, and I sold a couple short stories, and I sold a collection, and then I said, oh, you know, I have this drawer filled with ideas that nobody's ever read and nobody's been doing anything with, so I started repurposing some of the scripts, and they became novels, and now those novels are becoming scripts again, which is good too, but which is kind of the backwards way of making the movie that I really tried to make of the.
I think Adam G. Neville did that as well. I think he wrote a bunch of screenplays that never got made, put them into novels, and now they're getting optioned.
Yeah, he and I have had that discussion. Yeah, I think it happens quite a bit where you always want to repurpose what you have. There's no reason to throw it out if it's a good idea or a good story, and nobody wants to make the movie, then make it into a book. But like we were talking about earlier over drinks, it's like they want that existing IP. Studios are so much more comfortable being like, oh, it's been a book? Oh, well then somebody wants it, so we should definitely make it. Or they just don't want anybody else to have it. I don't know what it is, but if it's out there in some form, comic book, movie book, you know, however it is, short story on a website, they want it more than they want like somebody handing them a spec script, it seems.
That was, after Robot Overlords came out, I did what they call the water bottle tour of Hollywood, which is where you drive around and the footwell of your car fills up with water bottles, because everywhere you go they give you a water bottle. And I had meetings with, you know, Amazon, Jim Henson and people like that. And my big mistake was I went out with a bunch of original ideas. And I'd only written Robot Overlords, so I didn't have any books or anything. And they kept saying, and they knew I worked in publishing, saying, is there a book? Is there a book you can, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I think if you could come up with an idea with the Kellogg's chicken, if you could make a movie out of that, you know, I mean, the joke in Hollywood is the Stretch Armstrong movie. I think they've been trying to make a movie out of the Stretch Armstrong toy for about 30 years now. So if you can crack that, you will crack Hollywood. They are definitely...
Ludo.
Yes.
Look, you say that, nothing's more. Pirates of the Caribbean was a fucking ride, and not even a good one. And that became like 5 movies.
Yeah, look at Barbie.
Yeah, well, Barbie, yeah.
And Lego as well. Everyone thought Lego was going to be a bad idea. By the way, when you say ride in the Irish accent, it just... let's talk about...
it works for me.
Let's talk option stories, because Sarah, I think everything you've ever written has been optioned. Is that you sent me a list and it went on for 4 pages?
There's a lot.
So what was the first thing that was optioned, and how excited did you get? Because I worked in publishing, and lots of books got optioned, and authors get very excited. But if 1 in 100 actually gets made, it's quite an achievement. So
I think it was A Matter of Blood, and it was then optioned by the same people for 10 years. Which was nice financially, and I'm very friendly with them, but then when it came up this time, I was like, no, I'm having that back. And then I sold it to Red Planet, and I've done the pilot, we're taking it out, you know, it's a much, you know, so I think that one was the first, I think, yeah. The Hidden as well was optioned for a little while, which was my first ever horror novel. But I think, I mean, my novels aren't always the most successful commercial novels, but there's obviously something cinematic in the way I write, and actually the more screenwriting I do, the more comfortable I am with it in a lot of ways than novel writing. I mean, obviously once you reach the end of that last 2 months before filming, you're like, just give me a book again. You know, like I want to write a book, please God. But I really enjoy it. I enjoy the ups and downs of it. I mean, even the bad bits where you're screaming. I mean, I opened my book edit like a couple of days ago, a week ago. And I mean, like, it's a big edit because I was writing 6 episodes of television when I should have been writing the book. So it was kind of like, so I opened the edit, and having had screaming matches, you know, with the TV stuff, I was just kind of like, oh yeah. So then I emailed both editors, the American one and the English one, and I was like, listen, this is going to sound a bit big, but I want to ditch this storyline, I want to change this. And they're like, Sarah, that's a lot of work. And I was like, yeah, but that's what I'm going to do, because you get into that zone of everything gets restructured, and I just really enjoy it. So yeah, I think 30 Minutes is about to be re-optioned. Netflix had that for a while, but Carnival in the UK, I'm selling it to, because obviously nothing's happening in America. So I mean, I'm like one person who's happy about the strike, because I don't have to work on one American project right now. I'm like, I have a draft on the Death House, and I'm like, yeah, that's not happening. But yeah, so I don't know, with the options, like, there are a lot more successful novelists than me, but out of my group of people, I think I am more, there's something about it. And I think also it's just the way of the world. Once you get, my advice would be always take the call. If people want an option, don't let your agent do it all. Set up a call, because, like, I remember Village Roadshow wanted to option Dead to Her, which is with Topic in America, which I think is going to go into, once this is over, we're going to start filming. I mean, I'm not writing it. But when I was on the phone with Village Roadshow, I was talking about screenwriting, and they said, oh, we didn't realise you wrote as well. And I was like, yeah. Then they gave me a movie to rewrite, and then I was going to adapt another thriller writer's novel, which I pulled out of. I started and then I pulled out of because Insomnia got greenlit and there was just no time. But because I'd had that call, like, it opened that door. So I'm a great believer in, I mean, I'm very antisocial and hermit-like in my real life, but work-wise, take the meeting, have the lunch, do the chat, because a friend of mine said, and I don't think it was his advice, I think someone had told it to him, but, be easy to work with and be easy to fire in screenwriting, because, if you're easy to fire, they'll come back to you with another job, because you're probably getting fired for something that's nothing to do with your writing.
Yeah.
It'll be, so thankfully I've not yet been fired, but it came close a couple of times. But, I think, yeah, so I've waffled off topic.
That's good. Gavin Queef, you've had your works optioned. Tell us about that experience.
I've never had a drunken conversation options.
The night's young.
And we're at the time.
Which is ridiculous, because the amount of drunken conversations I've had in my life, I feel that could be a valuable...
Maybe you have and you don't remember. That's the problem, you see.
Yeah, I mean, so... right, this is another trick. So a lot of the options were early on, and they were people who were also trying to break into the film industry.
Right.
So they had, I don't want to say Mickey Mouse production companies, but they had Mickey Mouse production companies. That said, I mean, they were interested in me, because it was like, I need that, and instead of sort of wanking about, I just went and wrote it. So it didn't matter how crap it was, they had something there. It wasn't all crap. And it is a way to do it. So you go, so I've had this option, that option, that option, that option, and there was paperwork and things like that. It worked a lot better for my director friend than it worked for me. But that said, outside of that, I have had a couple of things optioned. I worked, I'm still working with a producer on the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle thing, but it's going nowhere at the moment. But I met him because they were looking for low-budget action films with Chinese money behind it and British talent, and I pitched them something. They went for it, but there was two sort of producers, and the one I was talking to left, and the other guy sort of, I'm not sure about this, so I kind of backed out of it and became friends with that guy, and we've also been not making films together for a number of years. So, I mean, this isn't perhaps the most inspiring. Speak to Queef, he could just get drunk, and people will.
I mean, I've also got drunk and lost options. I should even that out.
Right,
to be clear, drinking's not recommended. I mean, everything's sort of been optioned, like the books and stuff. The really weird one was we got a lot of American interest in The Stranger Times, which is really odd, because again, that started off as a script that nobody wanted years ago. I think my agent at the time didn't even really get it, didn't send it out. And then I had the weird thing where I actually brought down to London because they said, we need to have a meeting about the screenwriting. So I was like, but the book hasn't come out yet. And it was like, yeah, it's out there. I was like, I don't know what's that. Like, I was in the meeting with the TV and I said, literally, I've had so many scripts over the years. He went, how do these people know about this book? And they went, she just went, it's out there. I went, that's a stupid way to run an industry. How is this a thing? But yeah, no, and then weirdly, American companies got really interested in it, which was odd, because to be honest, it was just having phone conversations with, frankly, apologies here, because this is, your people are frankly too positive. There's a thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, but you know, like literally, the woman who actually eventually, God love her, optioned the book, I was chatting to her later on and she went, oh, that was the first time we spoke. I thought for the first 20 minutes you were really standoffish. And I go, can I be honest with you? I said, yeah. You spent 20 minutes telling me how great I was. Yeah. I'm Irish Catholic. You said nicer things in 20 minutes than both my parents combined said in my entire life. I was literally sitting there going, oh, please talk about something else. I don't know how to deal with praise. So like, that was a very weird thing. And you know, and you sort of go through all that sort of thing and then it's, you kind of, then it goes off and these things. Because weirdly, after being a screenwriter for ages, I got to the point where my books were optioned, and oddly, I didn't want to write them. Because I'd frankly been through the mill where loads of stuff been optioned, you write scripts, nothing happens, and it is like, I know we're being positive, but like it's a tough road, being a script. It's why I much prefer being a novelist now, because everything I write I know is going to go out, and it's going to go to people where you will have as a scriptwriter when, you know, the bad times is where I spent a year working on something. It was with the wrong production company. They were from a drama background, not a comedy background, and they rewrote the pitch without telling me. And it went to at that time before Netflix and stuff, it went to BBC, ITV and Channel 4, and they all came back with, oh, this sounds more like a drama, we're looking for a comedy, and they're like, they never actually read the script. And we spent a year, went through 15 drafts of that script, and it literally didn't get read, which is heartbreaking. But the other side of it is, you know, you do, and I'm now, what's interesting is, because I'm amazed you've written, like I was saying, the fact that you've written your own work as a screenplay, I find incredible. Because
yeah, my agent was like, yeah, get the fucking money. But also it changes, doesn't it? You're not writing the same story.
Well, that's the thing, like, because most authors can't like back away from what they're doing.
I read my novels. I wrote them the first time. I'm happy to back away.
Oh, okay.
I'm happy to change them.
Okay, well, but yeah, because I've sort of been through that, and now, interestingly, now I've now seen scripts based on my novels written by other people, and now at the point going, maybe I should try and write some stuff. Yeah. I'm getting annoyed by the choices they've made and stuff. But yeah, it is, I mean, it's a hard road, but the great thing about it is, like when I spent 10 years doing it, I literally spent 10 years writing every script imaginable. And like for a practical tip, if you want to write scripts, learn to speak script. Like, I mean, literally read the script of everything you can get. And nowadays they're all free on the internet. I've got like literally entire bookshelves full of every script imaginable. Learn to read script to the point where it's literally second nature. By the end, I was able to write a 28 minutes kids sitcom script. I actually, when they really needed me to fix somebody else, I wrote one in a day because literally it was in my brain. That was how I was writing. To the point where I started then writing novels, and I knew to do dialogue. I had to learn how to write prose, frankly. So as a practical thing, read as many scripts as you can. Yeah, and then the option thing. Sorry, to go back to your original question, which I'm pretty sure I've entirely gone off. This thing is, yeah, you just sort of. I think it's one of these things where you kind of. The big thing with writers is. It's been optioned great. Don't invest too much hope in anything with option. Like literally, this has been optioned fantastic. Go and do the other thing. Write the next idea. How writing careers die is they stop waiting for a phone call. Never be sitting there waiting for a phone call. Always be working on the next thing. Because when you're in a meeting and it's not going well, someone asks about the next thing, and that's how you end up getting a career, because the next thing is the thing that's the big thing. So.
I want to go back to the self-deprecating British thing, Irish thing for a moment.
Hang on a sec, let's not go by that, excuse me.
There's a very good book called Writing Movies for Fun and Profit by two British writers called Robert Ben Garrett and Thomas Lennon. They're British writers in Hollywood. And when they were first doing meetings, they were having those kind of things where they're being told how brilliant they are. And they were going, no, we're rubbish. Oh, we're terrible. It's going to be awful. And at the end of one meeting, a Hollywood producer came up to them, gave them a card, said, this is my therapist. See them about your anxiety and self-esteem issues.
Also, I think with America, you just have to remember two things. Number one, they've not read your book. Someone's read your book and written a paragraph on it.
Right, yeah.
And also, they're very, very positive in the room. You know, like in England, they're not so positive in the room, but you know what you're getting. In America, they're loving you in the room. You might never hear from them again. You know, so it's kind of like a faux positivity to a certain extent. Whereas in England, you know when they think you're shit because they tell you.
We're going to throw it open for questions in a moment, so if you've got any questions, we'll take those. Mark, I want to come back to you because you've been working on movies and adapting them for audio, things like Blood and Satan's Claw and stuff like that. First of all, what's that process like? And also, these are beloved films.
Yeah.
They come with a kind of a weight of
And
expectation.
beloved by me as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how do you cope with all that?
As Sarah says, just take the money. No, I mean the Blood and Satan's Claw actually that came about through a Facebook post because I wrote a Facebook post saying how much I love Blood on Satan's Claw, and then the producer of Battlegab, Simon Bernard, got in touch and said, "Just saw your Facebook post. I'm looking for a right. So I've just got the rights to do an audio adaptation, and I saw your Facebook post. Would you be interested?" I straight away said yes. But it's really interesting when you kind of actually, because I love that movie. I think it's, I first saw it when I was about 11 and it traumatized me, terrified me. It's a classic British folk horror movie. But when you actually break it down, you kind of realize it's got so many problems. It's got so many structural problems. Yeah. So I examined it in great detail. Obviously, I was making notes about it, and you kind of literally watching going, oh yeah, that scene's in daylight, then the next scene's at night time, and the next scene which takes place 10 minutes after the scene before is still in daylight, and then, so it leaps about all over the place. And I downloaded I found the script online, downloaded the script, and it's about 17 pages or 19 pages. There's very, very little dialogue in it. And you kind of realise that there are so many scenes which are just atmospheric scenes of people on their own. So that was the main thing, was like, right, how can I make this still a scary movie, still keep the spirit of it, but have scenes where it's obviously two people going to have to interact, because you've got to have them talking about what's going on. You can never write audio dramas with one person on their own, unless they're talking to themselves, which just comes across as really trite and just terrible. So that was the main thing. It was just kind of, right, so how can I'll move these characters around, I'll make this scene so that, initially it was just this one guy on his own, so I'll move this person into this scene. How can I still make it scary when there's two people? So that was the main thing. Was just the kind of the structural, statistical kind of moving things around so that it actually still made sense.
Yeah. So
that it actually still felt like the film in essence. And I think I ended up using 2 lines maybe from the original script.
Wow.
I mean, they did say you can use as much of the original script as you want, and I just used 2 lines, I think. And then the rest of it I just did myself. And I always thought it had a terrible ending, even though I love the film, so I completely changed the ending.
Excellent. Philip, what we're hearing again and again is that thing of being visible, be it a Facebook post, be it going to meetings, being it, taking the call, that kind of thing. Having worked in Hollywood, any tips for writers in making themselves more visible, in being the person that is put in front of the producer?
Well, no, I mean, I've worked in film and TV production for a very long time, on and off for 30 years, with breaks to do other things. But no, I mean, everyone in Hollywood is a screenwriter, even if you're not a screenwriter. So I have found the most success, as far as visibility is concerned, in publishing, which I think is part of why I'm getting so much more activity now on that side of things, because my books are getting more well-read than my screenplays ever were. So that's kind of, there's not really a way to go about making yourself more visible unless you have like an agency who's out there pimping you, or convincing studios that they should be working with you. I think you have to have material out that they can see, that they see you're popular, they see that people like what you're doing, and I think that gets them excited. But I wanted to share one anecdote, because based on what you guys are saying about positive Americans. This is something that you guys might find interesting if you're ever in this same situation. And I also, 2 things I want to tell you, but I was paid to write a screenplay for my own short stories, and which I did. I was happy to do, and we got on a Zoom with the director and the producer, and swear to God, this is a true story. And the producer said, "Look, before this director, I won't say any names, gets into talking about the script, I just want to let you know that I've been producing movies for 30 years. I've read thousands of scripts. This is a movie I've never seen. I'm so blown away by it. It is perfect. I cried at the end of the script. I've never cried in 30 years of making movies. I just wanted to let you know how much I really enjoyed the script. And I said, wow, thank you so much, it's amazing. And he went to the director, and the director said, swear to God, right, so I have changes. And, and he proceeded to completely destroy the script. And to the point where I did exactly what they wanted. I told them it wasn't going to work. I did it anyway, and it didn't work. And this also goes to another point that was made earlier, which was I was still owed money. Because when you write a script, you're paid. There's a thing. There's a way it goes. You get paid this much for the treatment. You get this paid for the second treatment. You get this, so there's steps. And I had a couple steps left, but they said we really want like a fresh take on this story. And I said, if you want a fresh take on the story, why are you having me write the screenplay? I wrote the fucking story. Like, I can't give you a fresh take on something that I've already created. And there's only one way for me to tell this story. So I told them just to hire another screenwriter, which they did. But it's, sometimes I think it's okay to bow out of a project if it's not right for you, because I don't think you're doing yourself any good, and I don't think you're doing the people who are trying to make the movie any good. And the only thing I want to say about options, because I think it's important for guys listening, is that I have done very well with optioning novels. The current novel I have with Orbit is optioned, and this was a screenplay, and there's a pilot and all that stuff. And one of my other novels is optioned, which is great. But where I've had real successes with my short stories. So I've had, I think, 5 short stories optioned. And I think short stories are great because it's just the hook. They just want the hook. And they don't necessarily want to make the whole novel. They want to make, oh, that's an interesting hook. We can make that into a movie. And they give you the same amount of money, pretty much, that you would get from a novel, as far as options are concerned or whatever. I mean, I've had 2 studios option stories that I wrote in a weekend. 2 different stories from 2 different. So it's a really nice way. First of all, it's a really good reason to write short work because you're creating a lot of ideas. And I think it's also a very sellable way to package a good idea and sell it. So just wanted to kind of throw that out there for writers.
Excellent stuff.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for the panel? Yes, hello.
Say, hypothetically, someone is an audio scriptwriter and they are interested in screenwriting and would like to make a short film of something they've written, but they're horrified by all the extra tech and practical requirements. What would you say to that hypothetical person?
Point an iPhone at your words. I mean, literally. But find somebody who can edit.
The world's full of people who want to be directors. Like, you literally just ask around people you know and stuff. You'd be surprised. There's quite a few people.
Across social media.
Yeah, social media and stuff. Like, the 2 of my mates are now directing films for short things and doing stuff. So yeah, ask around, and you do kind of have to put yourself, because you will find somebody who's looking for ideas and it's not their strength. So the trick is just finding somebody whose your skills dovetail well with theirs, but they are definitely out there. So yeah, I would definitely go for that.
Yeah, a lot of people have spoken about the collaborative process. Film is very collaborative and everyone gets to chip in and everything, and you do relinquish control. So where maybe with a novel or with audio you've had, your vision is what makes it onto the finished product, everyone's going to be chipping in with different ideas and things, and you have to be a bit more welcoming to that. But as well, if you're in an area, because I'm in North Kent and there's like a sort of Medway film group there, and it's made up largely of people who make corporate videos who are really good with the kit, who desperately want to make a low-budget horror movie that breaks through and goes to festivals and stuff like that. And they are not necessarily, story people. They're not necessarily writers. They're directors looking for a script. I mean, the thing is, it will, at that level, it will probably go horribly wrong, but you will learn all sorts of lessons for it that you can carry forward. I think perseverance is really big in this gig as well. Anyone else want to add anything to that? Okay. Any more questions, folks? Over there, thank you.
For any panellist who cares to answer, is there anything that you feel you're very good at in screenwriting that you're not so good at in prose writing, or vice versa?
Okay, I'll just.
Are they non-transferable? Yeah.
Is there anything you're good at screenwriting that you're not good in prose writing, or vice versa, or are they transferable? Sarah, do you want to start?
They're very different skill sets. And I'm not, I read some work like Capture an Award or whatever, and I think, God, I want to write this beautiful prose. But actually, I'm quite pared back. I write like a screenwriter, whereas if I can delete it, I'm happy. And dialogue is very different. When I'm writing novels now, I find it harder because the dialogue is so different for screen. When most novelists get an option that I know, if they come to me for like, because now I'm an aging aging, cynical beast of this world.
That's how I think of it.
Yeah. we refer to you as the beast when you're not here.
I'll always say take the first draft money. You know, take the first draft money because they'll fire you. They probably won't even read your draft, but you'll learn, you'll get paid. But actually, most novelists don't transfer as screenwriters very well because they are very different, and screen is very much about paring back and coming in at the last minute, going out early. And novels, you can like, I mean, I've done that thing where I used to, especially in the early days, where when Twitter first started, 2009, everyone was doing 2,500 words a day. And I'd be like, I've got to do 2,500 words a day. And 1,000 words a day, be I'm just going to fucking describe some shit here. I've done my words. Whereas, you know, especially working with, for the Death House, I'm working with the producer who made Bohemian Rhapsody. And he is so, like, on my case with every scene, like, what's in the scene is going to get lost in the edit. Whereas in books, you get to elaborate. So I think if you're going to transfer a skill, I would say the skill novelists can take from screenwriters is stop dicking around and go in for the kill with what your scenes are doing. Look at your chapters and think, is this chapter functioning as a chapter, or am I going to have someone put the book down and not pick it up again because I've done 3 chapters of waffle. I haven't passed that test yet.
Are you trying to say that in prose you can wank on a bit?
Yeah, you can wank on in prose, and you just don't have. And editors are like, you get your book edit, and it's like, oh, I love it. We could just do this in the next 3 months. You know, TV notes or film notes are just like, yeah, this isn't working, that isn't working, that isn't working, and it's much more a machine. You know, like, and you hand it over. Like my director, who happens quite happily to be a very hot Icelandic man. I keep saying to him, it's like we're having a baby, isn't it? But it's like, you know, I've done my bit of the parenting, and now it's like, you're the stay-at-home dad, here's the kid. And you have to create this relationship that he's literally not having.
Are you all looking forward to the inevitable lawsuit?
Yeah.
As much as we, the parents.
Yeah. We all want to find out what the line is in your short film. We all want to find out the line she was in there. We all want to see the picture of the Icelandic operator. But by the way, if anyone guessed the kid show I got fired from, very popular kid show. I'll throw this out there. Rasta Mouse. I was the original writer on Rasta Mouse and they fired me.
Why did they fire you?
For a very good reason. It was a narrative problem I had with it, because at the end of the books, basically you have a baddie that becomes a goodie and they realise that things were going like they shouldn't be doing what they were doing in their life and it was a bad thing and they reformed themselves. And I was like, that's a lovely message in the book. The problem is you're making 26 episodes of this, so the next time round that person has to do something wrong again and then realise at the end of it's wrong, and then they do something wrong again, and and basically what you're making them into is repeat offenders, which is exactly what And I remember the meeting where I explained that to the director, and I can remember coming home and getting the phone call 3 days later where I was fired, and I was so bloody happy because I knew I couldn't write the thing, and I didn't want to give it up because my agent was like. So when they rang me up and said, "Oh, you can't do it," I literally put the phone down and high-fived the missus and went, "I've been fired!"
You could have renamed it Recidivist Mouse.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it was. And then it went on to be a massive hit. But there you go.
I just want to add one thing to what she asked about, which I thought might be helpful to folks, is that I do think that if you study screenwriting, you will learn a lot about story structure that you can implement into your novels.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that screenwriting taught me was how to write a great story and how to keep people interested and how to keep some sort of structure that you can of course play with and modify as you want, but it does teach you how to tell a story in a way. And there's some great screenwriting books out there that you could look up that I think were very helpful if you're going to write fiction, especially a novel, because it's basically a feature film in a way and written in prose.
I was just going to say it's a lot easier to go from screenwriter or failed screenwriter in my particular position to novelist than it is to go the other way.
Yeah, because there is, just on a practical point, the big thing I took from, because dialogue is what you learn from doing screenwriting, and what I learned when I tried to do into prose is like I'm not very good at describing a building or what people are wearing and stuff like that, because I'm just frankly not interested in those things, if I'm honest. And what I actually learned from doing it was you don't have to do that in a book if you don't, like, as long as you're creating the scene in the way you need to, you don't need to, like Ben Armanich is one of my all-time favourite authors. He describes architecture brilliantly, because Ben loves architecture, and he should do that. I don't know what kind of building we're in right now. Me trying to describe it's terrible. So just basically play to your strengths, and screenwriting teaches you that, because you don't do big long descriptions in screenwriting, because if you
No
do,
one's
they
gonna
don't.
read it.
Yeah, they just
Yeah.
throw the
Yeah.
script out. If you're wasting time, they'll throw it out. Yeah.
Excellent. I think we'll end there on some good advice. I think we're going to wrap things up. So, folks, please show your appreciation for Phillip, Gavin, Mark, Quinn, and Sarah.